I was invited to France actually by Pauline Paris, who is a professor at the University of France. Yeah. And I was invited to give a talk there, which is going to happen on Monday, as part of a seminar that they are doing over the whole year to research sexuality. And Pauline actually read one of my articles on waacking punking, was very interested in, my research. So when I was invited, I said, well, I would love to also co-organize an event with you. It's really important to me, actually, as a dancer, not only as a researcher, that we also have a chance to see what is happening in our communities and how people are actually doing the dance in real time, We can write about it in books, and we can also read about it in books and articles, but what we sometimes don't get a chance is for the dancers to really talk and say what's going on for them, why the dance is important for us, what kind of meanings it has for us. And so this event came about, and this event would not have been possible without a few really important people who helped to co-organize very last minute. We were very lucky to actually receive some funding from the university, and what I understand, that's a little rare in France. And so I'd like to also thank Pauline Paris.
It's a pleasure.
Also Marco Marie.
Yeah.
And Bruno Marignan. And Bruno is actually who introduced me to this wonderful roundtable of artists. And we'll have a chance in a second to hear from all of them. I wanted to take a moment to thank all of the funders for the event. I'm going to do my best. I'm practicing my French. L'École Universitaire de Recherche, l'Institut Universitaire de France, l'Université Paris Cité, l'Université Sorbonne Paris Nord, and l'Institut d'Histoire du Temps Présent.
That's good. Almost French.
So, before we begin, I would like to quote an artist, Wu Sang, who has really inspired me to think about queer history in my research, and especially in my research on waacking and punking, which is a dance, right? As street dancers, we were talking before this event, we were talking about how everything goes by oral transmission in our dance culture. It's very rare that things are written down. We often pass the dance simply by dancing, by moving, and not by written or spoken language. And Wu Sang says, queer people rarely exist in official history. We've always had to decode the past to find it. Translation becomes a process through which we discover what we want to see in others or what we want to say about ourselves. It happens when you want to understand something and you can't fully understand it, when you're working with language that's not your own. So we're always translating. We're usually translating on the dance floor, in the club, in the studio, even on stage in the battle. We're doing different kinds of translations, and I hope that this panel will open up and explore all those possibilities for how we share our stories, despite some of the language differences and across the differences in time, in space, and in the ways we move our bodies, and in the ways we feel about our bodies. So I'd like to open and first just allow everyone to have a chance to introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? And choose one dancestor. We're using the term dancestor to describe our ancestors in the dance. Choose one dancestor who you'd like to bring into the space, who is important for you to honor here today. Why are they important to you?
maybe before starting, we have to ask if everyone is comfortable with English, maybe.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah,
yes,
maybe.
I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, so you've heard me just speaking in English. And we did at first talk about how are we going to, or do we want to use translation or not. We notice it's a little difficult when we have to stop, you know, and we might interrupt the flow. However, if there are people in the audience that really prefer French, how do people feel about, is it okay to just do English? Maybe raise your hand if you definitely feel that you need translation into French.
Yeah.
Raise your hand high, don't be ashamed.
Don't be shy, okay.
And what about people who are okay with the panel being in English?
Yeah, maybe we need translation.
Yeah, we're trying. Do you prefer that we have French translation, or is it okay to stay in English?
We have one person.
Maybe I can translate for her.
Yeah.
Sitting next to each other or something.
Okay, maybe, yeah,
Could be a
probably,
solution.
Est-ce
maybe.
que vous comprenez de façon globale?
Oui, non, si je suis toute seule, ça ira très bien.
Non, mais peut-être ce
Non,
qu'on peut dire, c'est que si jamais il y a quelque chose que vous ne comprenez
Voilà,
pas,
c'est
vous
ça.
interrompez et on fera une traduction à ce moment-là.
Or you can ask me.
Aussi. Voilà.
Nous-mêmes, on peut se répéter parce qu'on parle français.
Ah,
Yeah.
On peut aussi à des moments faire des petites remarques
Ouais,
en français.
Okay, so we'll
Just
Yeah.
Pour
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
if someone just get in trouble, just hold your hand so we see you, and then we try to go with the flow and keep it in English and French right after, so we don't have to ask like, hey, can you translate?
Yeah.
You know, you just hold your hand and say,
That's
okay,
cool.
please.
Ah.
And then we will, you know, react right away.
Luckily, it's a small group, and so, you know, it's okay. We can just communicate that way. Okay, so, yeah. Yeah, so the question is, just to first start off, who are you? And who do you name as your dancestor? Who would you like to bring into the space, call into the space as your dancestor? Who is important to you to honor and tribute? And I'm going, it doesn't have to be a specific order, whoever wants to start.
Okay, I can go. Yeah, I started in the middle of the 80s as a hip hop dancer. Then I discovered house dance in the middle of the 90s. My first around my first travel in New York. I took classes with some elders, and I discovered the house dance culture. And one time, around another travel, one of the teacher, Bragin, you know him, yeah, started to learn waacking. It's how I discovered waacking dance and punking. It was love at the first sight for me. Yeah, it was like a crush. Yeah. So I decided to go deeper to learn this culture. So I took classes with Tyrone Proctor and Archie Burnett too. I learned a lot about the underground US queer and community, and the punking too community. It's how I met and discovered waacking. It was in the early of 2000. Wow. Yeah, my ancestor. My ancestor. It's an elder of my neighborhood. It's a hip hop dancer. No one can know him, but,
Okay.
well, but
you can name
it's, yeah. It's,
Please name him if you.
yeah, it have a nickname. Nickname it's Booba. Booba. It's a nickname. Yeah.
And was this your teacher?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hip hop teacher. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I continue. Yes. So Bruno started dancing in the mid 80s. I was born in the mid 80s. It's different generations, which I find very interesting. And I'm the for once I'm the youngest in this panel, not in age but in experience, because age doesn't really matter. But I discovered waacking when I was doing my like hip hop dance school, which is funny because I'm really bad in hip hop. Hip hop never liked me really. And it was like just a workshop day, and then this teacher, whose name is Avril, was teaching us waacking, and it was love at first sight, exactly same. And Amélie told me that day, you're a waacking dancer, and I was like, girl, I just met waacking. What do you mean I'm a waacking dancer? I didn't even know it existed like before like 5 minutes ago. And then she was like, but you have to keep going. You have to go take classes because I feel like this dance is for you. And she was right. You know, sometimes you see people that see things in you that you haven't seen yet. And that was the case that day. So I kept on like taking classes. And I kept on trying to learn the history because, as you will know, or as you know maybe already, I'm a history head. I'm obsessed with history in general. I'm obsessed with community in general as well, but we'll have more time to talk about it. So when I discovered waacking, I projected a lot on this dance and on this culture as well, as a queer person of color, because I'm queer as in gay, homosexual, yes. And of color, because I'm from Algeria, I'm from North Africa. So it was, it was a community that was created, a dance that was created by like gay people of color. So of course I like recognized myself a lot in it. And I spent, I think, as much time researching the history of it and the community of it as learning the technique of it. And so I would like to honor two of my dance sisters today. One of them is my grandmother, Yima, because as far as I can remember, I've seen her dancing around, and I was just like so inspired, like in general, because she's my grandmother. She was Allah Rahma, and we've always danced together, so I think I channel a lot of her when I dance a lot of time, and she's been protecting me ever since she passed away because she's always around. And my second dance sister that I want to honor today is actually sitting next to me, is Bruno Marignan, because Bruno Marignan was trying to teach me house dance for 2 years and never succeeded because I was really bad. And one day I will tell the history of how bad I was. Like Bruno would like actually stop the music in class and look at me, was like, "Tu fais quoi là?" What, like, "Tu fais quoi? C'est quoi ça? What are you doing? Like, what the fuck is this?" It's true, it's a real story. And then I was like, okay, so maybe hip hop is not for me, maybe house dance is not for me, even if it's better now. But I started to go to Bruno's waacking classes, and then we finally got along. That's when we got along. Before that, we were not getting along. And Bruno cleaned all of my waacking techniques and really shaped my waacking. Like, he's the one who shaped all of my waacking techniques. So I'm very grateful for him and everything that he's been teaching for like decades in Paris. So a big dance sister and inspiration, because also I want to remind everybody that we don't build ourselves. We build ourselves thanks to people that were here before us. And I think sometimes in the dance community we often forget about it, and people are like, I'm a self-made dancer, but bitch, you never are. You always have people before you. So I'm very grateful for this whole panel as well.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm Sonia Soulshine. I have to say 45 because, you know, names, age, doesn't matter, but it matters a lot. Yeah, sometimes. I've been dancing for 25 years and been doing like 15 years of living over the dance as an intermittent, we say in French, and now I have another part of my life where doing something else, administration, office work, but still dancing. I'm part of this generation where we started with club, so dance was just a way to express, and that's it. We didn't think about nothing that time, and then slowly it went up, and then we get into different styles. So I started with locking, and then that time we've been learning all the styles. It was no choice. If you want to be a dancer, you're a dancer, so you learn locking, popping, house. Then came the house dance, where we started to travel to the state to understand from the OGs, and then came the waacking. We have this. That time it was not much women dancing, so I was around a lot of men, and my generation, we were not allowed to go out like you do today. Sometimes you meet in a club like girls who's 20, you're not allowed to go to the club. You study and that's it. So we had to figure out there was a different way to behave. For example, when I was going to the club, I was telling my mom that I was doing babysitting. All the money that I was doing with dance, that was the babysitting money. So we behave in a different way. This time we have different. It was mostly men, so we were looking for, women. Is there women dancing? So we're looking around. Of course, the first inspiration were men. In France, especially, it was Junior Almeida, because he was a jazz dancer, he's a street dancer, but also he had all this knowledge about waacking, and he was introducing me to the first wack move. It was just like, yes, it was, amazing. And it was different people that I met, Storm, who also, I have a lot of conversation, and also teach me how to build the dance, and also we have a lot of history about dance, because he was going back and forth. He was part of the Rocksteady crew at that time, so he had a lot of information about this dance, and he also had a lot of videotape, because we've been fighting to get some videotape.
Yeah.
Then other inspiration that actually there is a lot. There is this woman, Marjorie Smart, that I met and was doing house, and it was free in her dance and allowed to be a woman, because back in the days we used to wear baggies, and it was not the same. Show off and just show your teeth. It was not correct. It was just vulgaire, like we say in French. Marjorie Smart. There was also another Pop Sanchez.
Yeah.
Chabadou. There is so many. And also all the French dancers, because that time we were few waacking dancers, and we have discussion, we have argument, we have training, and we try to understand what it was with no tape, no internet, no videos, and just ourselves and few moves that we mix it all together.
Yeah.
Hello everybody, I'm Leila Nai, that's my stage name. My real name is Leila, and I'm from Morocco, born in Paris, and I started to dance a lot of dances since my childhood. So when I was 6 years old, I saw ballet dancers on TV, and I said to my mother, hey, I want to do that, but I didn't know what it was. And I had a great opportunity, because we are from, what we say, Pau district. I'm not sure about the Pau, but Pau, etc. district in Paris. And so we had a grant to put me on the conservatory to learn modern jazz. So within 10 years, and after I said, hey, no, I have to learn hip hop. And I have 3 big brothers and 1 sister who are born in the 70s. So around 10 years older than me, who really put me into funk music, disco, and after New Jack. So what we had before R&B. And so every Saturday I could see my brothers dancing on the living room, and then after going clubbing, and I was just 10 years old, what is clubbing? Wow, it's like a battle. And sometimes they came back because they were from North Africa, they weren't allowed to go into the clubs. Yes, so what happened is that, like Sonia said, everybody, I think in the previous years, we had to learn every style of hip hop.
Yeah.
So yes, I tried to do like b-boying with my flexible arms and house, everything, and I fell in love into locking. But very quickly after, by going through the history, like I am obsessed also about roots, I discovered Ana Lollipop Sanchez in a very short video. It was around 2003, 2004. And I was obsessed about few videos trying to repeat the moves. And I was a student, and then I came back to Paris. I was in Paris, and what I wanted to say is that in my culture, being a dancer is not a job. In North Africa, in Morocco, shtaha for dancer means sexual worker. So for women, it's very bad to live as a professional dancer. So I finished my studies. I have been engineer in finance during 15 years, and also professional dancer. And so the good news is that I used all this money I earned to travel starting 2008 to Japan, to the USA, to learn from some OGs. So I had the opportunity to I think maybe meet all the OGs. So we can quote, of course, Archie Burnett, but also Tyrone, which was right after. But before Tyrone, I met somebody who few people know in Japan, who is living in Japan, who is Cleveland Moss GR, who is part of the outrageous dancers, the outrageous WAACK dancers, so original group of waacking dancers. Victor Manuel, Dallas Zegler, rest in peace. So a lot of people who are maybe not known a little bit, but I was obsessed to meet them, and I managed to know where they live and to go there. Also Angel, who was a student from Shabadou, etc. So, sorry?
Living in LA.
Yes, in LA, etc. So I couldn't imagine that I was building something like historical, especially a lot of these people died. But with all of this, I grew with this history and started to teach in 2008 because people asked me and I didn't want to teach. I was just like, no, I'm not allowed to teach waacking because some OGs told us you are not allowed to teach waacking. It was very hard to evolve as a whacker and to say I'm a whacker because the OGs, the American OGs didn't want. So to make it short, quickly after, and this is a connection with my dead sister, I linked waacking with my roots to say, okay, I can be a woman, I can be fierce and being proud to being North African, being proud to be a wacker, being proud to be part of the hip hop community, and there are no waacking battle, no waacking scenes, so we have to enter in the hip hop battles like All Styles. We are going to Lyon once a month to an old style battle, and I was just looking for people, and yes, I met Bruno, I took his classes, I met people in the clubs, and that was a big opportunity. So my dance sister is called Aisha Tashinwit. Tashinwit because she looks like a Chinese, but she's Moroccan, and I always thought she was Chinese because she put me into what I call fusion dances. Because she was mixing Berber, so Amazigh, we say Amazigh dances, with Indian dances, and it was very new. So I was very inspired to mix waacking with North African traditional dances, thanks to her, and also with all these people I already quoted. Sorry, it's a big story, but I'm really working into this fusioning like North-South in identities, cultures that makes us, human family, for 12 years.
So I just wanted to take a moment to reflect on what was just said here. What I found really interesting about waacking and punking is how hybrid it is. And in street dance culture, I think before, and people can contest, this is also my view, But I feel like before it was like, okay, you learn popping, you learn locking, you learn hip hop. There's battles, there are battle categories. There's hip hop battles. There's, you go into your category, right? Waacking and punking, it came along and it's a hybrid form, because if you go into the 1970s in the discos, disco music actually was messing with funk. It was messing with funk and bringing in other elements. It was bringing in soul. Disco is a hybrid music. And the movement that came out of the gay clubs in the 1970s was free. When I talked to a lot of the straight people who were coming into the gay clubs because they wanted to figure out what the heck is going on, they were coming to find their freedom. And so I really appreciate what you said, Habibitch, about, I couldn't dance these styles. I couldn't get hip hop, I couldn't get house, but then waacking, it felt like home. And maybe you didn't know at first. But I think there's also there's something queer about that. When you can't quite get what this is how you're supposed to do this is how you're supposed to do that. Because there's something queer about being like, I'm going to be free and I'm going to find the dance in me. It's a hybrid dance. And so it's interesting to hear some of the ways that we as dancers, no matter how we feel our identities, so whether they're the identities that society imposes on us or the identities we claim for ourselves, that through the dance we actually resist some of the ways that society tells us you have to fit into this box, and whether that's searching for the female, searching for the multiple ways that you connect with your culture, even searching for the female within being, in being a male body, or being someone who presents as male, or, understands oneself as a man. I'm also very interested in how you all connect to your identities through how this dance has helped you connect to your identities, however you define those. So that's the next question that I'm bringing in here. How has waacking punking shaped and or transformed your identity or identities?
But first we didn't really think about, it was dance. It was just fun. It was having a good time, being free, but we were, actually I was 20, 98. 98. So it was just a way to enjoy yourself, because I was a black girl in Paris, and not like now. You don't have, our parents were more like, you need to work hard if you want to become someone, but you also want to have some fun as a kid. You also want to have some good time with your people, and what was dance creating. It makes you get this feeling that you're just free. It doesn't have to be related. We didn't think about it, but it was already a way to free myself and allow myself to be a woman, allow myself to be black and proud, and all those elements. This time, I've been working with love band, and when I say being a woman, it's also the fact I don't want to dance like him. It's not like me. I'm different, and I want to accept it, and I want to embrace it, and I want to show it to everyone. So this is the time I started to look a style that, look like myself. So I saw that videotape. It was actually B-boy, it was B-boy Summit, and it was a girl battle. It was big girl, and then it was Anna Pop Sanchez talking. That time I didn't speak English or understanding English the proper way, and she was wearing a suit. I was actually going to school and doing this BTS where I had to wear a suit every day. So I was like, oh, this girl, she's hip hop, you hear this, street dance. And she started to talk. I couldn't understand what she was saying because she was talking fast. And then she started to do some move like, I was like, oh, this is, she's a woman. This is the first things. I didn't know what it was. I couldn't name it. She was talking about locking, and this is what I was practicing. And she was doing this move. So I started to ask around. And we've been doing some African movement to it, like trying to pretend throwing our arm. We don't know what it is. And this is how, somehow we started to
just free ourselves and do whatever we want. Then I went in LA and I took a class for her, and it's like you practice something, it just make you happy. You're not thinking about the fact to be black, the fact to be free. You just dance. And it's just after, when you realize after years, you question yourself, and you realize, especially when I went to work in office, that this gives you skills. This first start to be English, being comfortable speaking with different people at the office too, being able to have and to just show your skills, because you dancing with people in the club. It's like, I like what you do, this move, this, I like it for that reason. And it's just empower yourself slowly, year after years. And I think it's the new generation who came with this reflection about it, because we've been just building this thing, and they have to question themselves because they came into class and they have like all information and access to it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I answered the question, but
yeah. As a male and hip hop dancer, my experience is a little bit different, because hip hop culture, dance culture, hip hop dance culture, it's a man's world. Yeah, so you have to be powerful and confident. When I discovered waacking, it offered me an opening mind. I learned to use a different ways of my body and my arms, and go through and deeper my dance experience as a man, but as my female part inside of me. So it's my experience as a man of waacking.
it's a real exchange.
Yeah.
Allowed yourself to be something else.
You're right. That's it.
And that was funny, because it happened a lot, you know, when people, and especially in this dance world. And I remember one element in particular when Lysandra went to this event in Germany. I don't know,
Funkin' sites, yeah.
And you know, we get an education where we are a little bit racist. We don't know about this queer culture. We don't know about like differences, because some of us come from Africa, and some, you know, we've been educated in a certain way. And that's what came. And then she was all like, you don't it was a beautiful lady with a friend. She came and she been dancing, and all the guys came and danced with her, like, and they were like, and I remember that event. This guy came and like, this is a man. It's like, yeah, but yeah, it's
because the guys came, hey, hello, and
it was
said,
playing.
hey, qu'est-ce qu'il y a?
the voice.
Yeah.
The voice, yes.
But then at the end, you know, that time we used to go to this event by bus, we went back and we realized that the dance changed everyone's mind. You know, people didn't like gay people, but they liked the dance.
Yeah.
So slowly, year after years, you realize that they don't care no more about those elements. They just know that they like the dance of that person, and they like what she's or he's doing, and that's it. And he helped to change everyone's mind. And now, when I see it, I'm like, this is crazy. This is crazy what dance can make and open the mind of everyone.
There are a lot of things in common.
Yeah, you're right. Same
Yes.
experience, yeah.
So me, I evolved in a male environment, family, in work, in studies, like we were really literally in my school 100 students with 5 girls, including me. So waacking helped me to be feminine. So it was really the purpose at the beginning, especially as I was really, I had rehearsals, etc., only with poppers, with b-boys, going in clubs with b-boys. And after, when I started to see Sonia Soulshine and other women, I was just like, oh, hey, hello. And we connected very quickly. And after, it came after, I decided to connect with my roots, because I was just like, hey, I traveled a lot, I studied, I know the academical dances, hip-hop, etc. And where are my dances in France, as we are maybe 5 million coming from North Africa. So I connected a lot of what we can express in waacking, like posing, with colonial postcards, for example. That's my last work, of women victims of colonial propaganda through the image. So when I started waacking, I learned very quickly that it came from what we call the garbo, posing. So it came from posing, from a lot of inspiration from the 50s movies in black and white, and posing. So when I saw back this postcard in black and white from my ancestors, of women who were forced to pose to make North Africa exotic and to justify the colonization, I was just like making connections to say, okay, I want to make them tell their story, and I want to take this power. Also, I'm coming from a warrior tribe, and we are dancing male dances in my area, so I have really this maybe on the other side of being connected with the male, really inside of me, power. I also have a lot of power in my arms. People know me like I'm very obsessed about technique in the arms. So this is how waacking punking came into all of this, and put both power, fierceness, and being more feminine but not girly. When I was teaching, I was always telling, hey, waacking is not girly, because there were a trend like commercial dance, and I say it's not waacking. Waacking is being powerful.
So my experience is different because as everybody, I also have to navigate the world through a male gaze, but as a queer person, I also have to navigate the world through the heterosexual gaze, which you all are, and I'm not. I mean, I'm talking about all three of you. I'm outing you as straight people. You know, reverse homophobia, reverse heterophobia, whatever. And so my experience is different because, like, I'm from another generation as well, but also I'm from another perspective, another gaze. So waacking to me is not just a tool to empower myself or just empower my body or my femininity. It's a political statement because I'm queer, and it comes from a queer community, it comes from a queer scene. So if you allow me, I'll just go back on the history real quick, just because I feel like we're all acting like we know their history, but it's always nice to go back on it. So it's a gay dance, and it's a black dance, and it's a gay and black dance. Like, it goes together. It cannot be separated, right? Like, it was born and it was created by and for the gay black community in California in the late 60s, 70s, because dance is danced on music, and this dance was danced on disco music. And disco music back in the days was considered as a gay music and a black music and a gay black music at the same time. So people hated the fuck out of disco. Disco was not popular. Disco was underground. And not underground as in I'm a hipster and I drink fucking matcha lattes. It was underground as in it was dirty, it was nasty. Funk, do you know what funk means in English? Funky means smelly, it means something not nice. And disco music was the transition from funk music to electronic music. It was like the transition, and it was listened to and danced on by gay black people. I insist on it just because it's really important. and they would gather in clubs, so gay black clubs, to listen to disco music. And it was very alternative, it was very underground, and they would receive a lot of hate. And this is how also they started to create this dance. They did not create this dance because they were trying to, I don't know, feel more feminine or feel more masculine, or like find ways to free themselves from, I don't know, patriarchy in general. They just wanted to free themselves from racism, homophobia.
To face off many struggles.
So many struggles at the same time. It's called intersectionality. If you have time, there's Google. But like this was the creation of punking originally, because it was not called waacking originally. It was called punking, and because punk, the word punk in English means faggot, PD. It's an insult. It was an insult that was specific to California, Los Angeles. Punk was the word that was used to insult like gay men of gay experience. So they did what we call retournement du stigmate in sociology, which is using an insult to make it a strong identity. So this is why this dance is called punking, because punk is an insult.
And at this time, we have to remember the gay for the society, it was a mental illness.
Yes. And the society, I was about to say was, still is, very racist in the States, of course. So they were facing everything at the same time. And I'm just gonna state a little event that happened in 1979 in the States, in Chicago specifically. So 1977 is the year where Saturday Night Fever came out, the movie, which was the first time that disco music was made popular. But it was made popular by straight men, because the history of John Travolta is very straight in that movie. Yeah, so the appropriation was already starting. But it was made popular. The music was made popular, and everybody was like starting to get into it. So what it created was, as every time communautés minorisées, marginalisées are being seen, visibilized, etc., it creates a backlash here, and was like, oh, I'm gonna end this disco trend or whatever. And he organized what was called Disco Demolition Night. That was July 12, 1979. I like history. And he organized it, and he said, so if you wanna get in for free at a baseball match in Chicago for the White Sox team, you have to bring a disco record, and this disco record will be demolished, will be destroyed during the halftime break of the baseball match. And if you would bring a disco record at this event, at this baseball game, then you would get a free entrance. And he knew damn well that would bring a lot of people in, because people were broke, but they still wanted to see the legendary White Sox team, the baseball team in Chicago. So a lot of people showed up after this announcement that Steve Dan made. A lot of people showed up with records that were not disco records. They were just black music records. And that said everything about what was going on in the States back then, because everybody was just anti-black, period, and anti-gay. So it was just like an opportunity to be racist and homophobic freely, like it was. And they actually fucking destroyed all of these black records. How do you say records? Records. Yeah, the vinyl. They destroyed all of the vinyl during the halftime break of the match. So that's like pretty intense to watch. There's a documentary that's called Pump Up the Volume on YouTube if you wanna watch. I'm giving references because it's important. And they actually burned down all of the records. And the analysis is very accurate on Pump Up the Volume, because they know very well that it was because it was black music and it was gay music. And you can hear that night in the stadium, disco sucks, disco whacks. And this is why it became waacking, because again, they used the verb whack, because whack in English, if I look at you and I say, you look whack today, it means you look like crap. No offense, not personal. but it's just waacking is not a nice term. It's not a nice verb. Punking is not a nice term. It's not a nice verb. It comes from insult. It comes from oppressed community, marginalized communities that had to use insults to make powerful, strong identities. So this is why it's called punking. This is why it's called waacking. Gay, black, super important because, as I like to say, it's different now, but I feel like there would be no pop culture without black culture. Super important to remember this as well. So it's all connected, and this is why, to get back to me, when I discovered waacking, because as you may have understand or not, my brain is very political all the time. It was not just a way for me to feel more comfortable in my body. It was just the final reunion between my gender identity, my race identity, I'm gonna say even my gender identities, because I identify as non-binary, so I go back and forth between genders because I don't think gender exists anyways. I think it's a construct, so it's just a game for me, it's a playground. And waacking is allowing me, waacking and voguing, because I'm also a voguing dancer, but they are both allowing me to navigate and explore my gender identities, my racial identities, my feminism as well, because I'm a super hardcore feminist, and all of this together. But I feel like this has been a little bit lost in France, so I would say that I'm still a waacking dancer, but I'm not part of the waacking community, because the waacking community in Paris is not very aware of its history. Thank you for m'encourager à talk my shit.
Yeah,
You're right.
to melt into it, to just
Yes.
say it in a different way.
Of course, but
I mean,
je finis, I
yeah,
finish,
yeah.
just parce que sinon je vais perdre mon fil. But it has been a little bit lost in translation in some ways, and it's more of a dance now. It's a social dance that I love so much, but it has not become a community like ballroom has become, for instance. And it's for many reasons, and it's not judgmental out of me to say this. It's more of a fact. But as a queer person of color, being a waacking dancer in Paris has been hard, because it was a lot of straight people waacking, period. And then I was just like, oh, all right, I'll keep waacking in my corner and talk my shit because I have like things to say all the time. But maybe this community has been shaped in different ways here than it has stayed in the US, for example.
I don't think it has been shaped in a different way. It's just that, like you say, it's a politic way to behave. But you know, the time when I started, I was black. You know, today you're not facing the same situation that you have. For example, when I was walking in the street as a black woman, you know, old white men was saying, "Oh, this little boy," just because I'm black. "Oh, she's ugly." This is what we've been facing. The politic part was already there,
Right.
Yeah.
but we used to work on it in a different way. Making you happy is already a political, you know, struggle, because you know, you were not allowed. You see our generation of my parents, they've been working, cleaning all the shit here in France, and they were not allowed to have the good job. That's why we did the study. That's why we did dancing at the same time.
Yeah.
Because when I was going to school, like Lay said, I was pretty much the only girl in my class. I was the only black. The first thing I go when I get into school, I look around like, oh, you're the second black. You know, you're the minority. And this is how you act. And you cannot say to that person, you just act like, you know, like you see in some movies, like you just hold your head and you pretend like nothing happened. And this is how we're being politically
Agreed.
fighting, just being there. And the next generation already have this confidence.
Yeah.
And you know, this is what we build.
Yeah.
Even like you say, it's not there in the actual culture. I see it, and this is why I also will find it, but in a different way. Because you know, I'm still facing this situation when I did a show in a theater. People want me to have done classical dance. I know I didn't do classical dance. I come from street dance, because as soon as they consider that it's elegant, it has to be white. It has to come from a white culture. And no, I was elegant and I was black from a black culture.
dancing African dance, even if I didn't practice, except at home, you know, with my parents. Like, yeah, I did African dance and hip hop, and that's it. You know, so that was already a way to change mentality, to make people accept that we're part of the culture, that you can like something who's different than you. But we didn't word it because we wanted to keep, you know, the confidence was lighter that time. It was not as strong as the new generation. When we see it, like, wow, I'm impressed to see dancers dance the way they dance and to be comfortable with their body, the sexuality, the way that they behave, the way that they decide to be, because it was definitely not the same. So the struggle is the same, the fight is the same, but we name it differently.
It's layers.
Yes.
Layers and stuff.
We couldn't say like, you know, we couldn't talk about politics. The politics is to make everyone equal. We just wanted to get the same that others get. Through the dance, we make ourselves stronger. You noticed, people were noticing that you were stronger. So they want to come to you and try to learn what you have. So we started to share. We started to change mentality. And it's so much different way to fight in the same direction that it's hard to explain.
And if I may, because it's, you are right, if we compare waacking to voguing, there is really LGBT community, and waacking, what happened, there are a lot of things. We were talking about ancestors. First, who are the remaining LGBT worker ancestors? We can quote Victor Manuel, and he took a lot of time to say, hey, I'm gay, okay, I'm going to dance with heels on the street star in Sweden. It's very recent, it's like maybe 5 years ago. And waacking was lost in time, like when disco and funk became like, has been like in the...
if you remember, there was a little war between them.
Yes,
at the time, because
Can you
of the meaning, of the meaning of waacking.
The age
the
of
name,
the
Taiwan
age.
says,
Yes.
say, you remember?
Because Tyrone was coming back also. He is gay. Yes, his sister is married to Archie Burnett. So they are very close, and there were wars. And Tyrone is gay, so he could be this OG telling, hey, people, LGBT people, etc. But in fact, the story was different because, as Bruno said, when Canadian dancers came back to Tyrone to say, hey, you are an OG, you are in the ultra just WAACK dancers, you are in the soul train, you have to teach waacking, Brian Green, etc. He came, but it was late. It was after 2005. And then he became very, very popular. Everybody wanted to touch him, to learn from him, like Tyrone, you are a real OG. We found Soul Train videos with and yes, what happened is that finally it didn't spread like, hey, gay people, just come back to your culture. It became something with the houses of waacking, but not in the voguing way, like to grab people from the same community. Just something who became a little bit, let's be honest, commercial.
Commercial, right.
So the purpose was to come in a country, to be invited in a country, to organize a battle and and workshops. And then after like a ceremony to say, I'm glad to tell you that you are part of the House of Waacking of Italy, half of the Waacking of Spain. So I have been in Spain just par coincidence, and I was just like, no, I'm not part of House of Waacking of Spain. And you can imagine that the only country who doesn't have a House of Waacking is France, because we are just
we fight against them.
Yes,
because
but
we were. Finished.
Yes, that's another story. But just I agree, and the fact is that maybe now it's coming back because there are more people talking like you. But there were really in this time the OGs that we can see in Diana Ross live in the Caesar Palace with the OGs really of waacking, who were all LGBT and who finally died. And then we see Broadway, we see Shabadoo, we see Anna Sanchez, we see straight people, we see Dara Segler, Tony Basil, all these women, white, or Latinas, and straight people. So where were the people white? This is a question.
Well, I can answer this question real quick. They were dying from AIDS.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were dying
Most
from
of them,
AIDS.
And
yeah.
crack.
Most of them.
Yes.
But there is the
And crack, yeah. Most
There
of
is
them.
something.
This is important. Gay history, as
Yeah.
you said,
Most of
Putin, who I love so much. Gay history is oral transmission, is not written in books. Queer history is not written in books. People of color's
It's not
history is
street
not
dance.
written in books. So let's imagine what is gay of color history. It's not told. Also because in the 80s there was this huge crisis that's called AIDS crisis, where a lot of OGs, a lot of people even from the ballroom scene were just dying. So they were not here to tell their history. So it's not because they all disappeared all of a sudden and then the gap happened just because. It happened because first of all, they all were dying. Second of all, it was not and still not easy to be openly gay, especially when you're a person of color, especially when you're Black in the US or Black or brown or North African in Europe. So it's like, it's not just because, it has like systemic reasons.
It's a fact.
Like, yeah.
There is also some issue about it because, you know, back in the days when we used to travel, of course, a lot of them were already not there or left. And I think in this club there is also some straight people going. Shabadoo was one of them. And the thing is that we also always have to fight with between business and history.
Yeah.
To get the information. But when we were going there back in the days, people were more talking about whacking and punking, but themselves, they didn't know what it was. They couldn't name it. But the fact that European, I think, have been questioned a lot about, like, okay, we need to get the right information. So what is punking?
Yeah.
Some start to say punking is what you do around the table. But you know, when I read in the dictionary, because back in the days we had to translate everything to understand what is the meaning of the word, they were like, so what exactly it is? So they have to dig themselves to get the signification of what they've been doing and get the information from other people. And the Japanese been doing that too, trying to get the information, just first to get the dance. But this is how, you know, information came out, because everyone had to dig to get the right information. But punking, when I first hear the word, you know, the same people have different version through the years. And this is what makes it like, I mean, improvement slowly.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about Victor Manuel, who's still there, you know, this is not the one you invite in the event that much. And it's the one who got the culture, information, and all the knowledge. When you speak with him, it will let you know. He's here because he has something to share. And it's true that it's another point that we're supposed to talk about, is that it's not about the thing, it's about the history, about who you are and who you want to become. You want to, you know, and sometimes it's hard to find a balance between, because if you don't see the business going on, you don't see the history, and you relate it to your own feeling, your own struggle, fights, or empowerment, call it as you want. It's hard to understand this whole thing. But it's yeah, there's.
Yeah, I think it's
too big,
the
too much
whole,
thing.
the whole transmission. It's the issue. Yeah.
Of course it is.
Yeah, nobody managed the knowledge.
And everybody wants to tirer la couverture ensemble.
Yes.
You're
right. No, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of course, all of these dance forms are tied back to Black culture. And of course, Black culture has always been wrapped up in, you know, selling, right? Like the original selling of bodies, as if a body can be sold, you know? And so this continues in a lot of ways today. And I also want to honor all the brown folks too, who are part of these. You know, a lot of times people forget that, like, you know, hip hop, it was, you know, all of these designations, Black, brown, etc., you know, we reclaim them, and then we also have to sometimes push back on the ways they're used against us, you know, because sometimes we forget that there were a lot of brown folks, and even in Geno's, which was one of the early clubs, that they were called discos, they weren't called clubs, in the 70s, there was Filipinos, there was Asian folks too, you know, who were all a part of this culture from what I understand. But I do want to take a moment, because this panel has been so generous with sharing the brilliance, so that you can really see the complexity of street dance, the ways that gender, how we are gendered, is complex, because it's always informed also by how we are racialized, you know, and so I appreciate especially the way you all generously engaged each other and pushed back and challenged each other to really see how it, you know, we still have to deal with the violence of people looking at us and thinking they decide who we are because the color of our skin, or who they want to put us into the boxes of, you know, these terms, male, female, or masculine, feminine. It's terms that come out of like Eurocentric also languages that are very binary, you know, and so it's interesting for us to have to be in Western Europe, you know, still our languages don't really reflect the complexity of who we are inside, you know, and so as you all hopefully can see in how we are trying to speak to our experiences, but also have to speak in English or French, you know, or Spanish. They use el and what is it, el and il, right? Yeah, like how do we fit in? I'm Filipino, and we actually don't have masculine and feminine. We have sia, which is just general. It's actually like they, you know? And so it's interesting how, because these dance forms are also often transmitted through these binary codes, that we kind of slip through the cracks, you know? But I just am very moved to say that some of the names that have come up that people may not be familiar with in the room, Tyrone Proctor passed away, I believe, June 5 of 2020. So may Tyrone rest in peace. Shabadoo passed away on, I believe, December 26th of 2020. So also Shabadoo, rest in peace. You know, they were complicated figures, and they were complicated people, you know, and from knowing each of them in a personal way, as well as seeing who they are in a more public way, I saw the difficulty and the complexity of how they moved, you know, how Tyrone got called to teach this dance, and he always told me I didn't want to do it, you know. I saw also the struggle for someone, if you come from an experience where all of the people around you have passed, have fallen sick, or you just don't even know what happened to them. A lot of the time it was like people maybe went to prison, and I also want to add the term punk comes from African American prison slang, so it actually specifically comes from this experiences of sexual violence that happened to Black folks in prison. So so that is a term that also queer folks are reclaiming through the dance. But because of these these histories of violence, that sometimes it's difficult to speak of. You don't always want to speak of your history of violence, because then people want to take it and maybe like promote it or use it, you know, in a way that doesn't feel good to you. And so I saw also, from knowing Tyrone, the difficulty of him being so joyful to teach the dance, and at the same time also having to process that dance through his memories of mourning, you know, and that's something that I also speak to in my work, is how the dance is also a dance of mourning. I don't know if there's a term in French for mourning. Yeah, so mourning. It's a dance of celebration. It's always, we're celebrating, and we're also always mourning. You know, we're mourning those who have passed. So thank you all so much for just a very complicated and unique conversation. You know, there's like a braid that happens, braiding the trances, right? That happens when we bring our stories together. It's not simple. We can't just simply learn an easy history and then we think we know it, you know. So I wanted to move on to we talked a little bit about how this dance has come into Paris today. I think we kind of began to mention it, but maybe we could just talk a little bit about the new generation. We already began to talk about this, but if there's more that we would like to talk about, the new generation of dancers and dance communities in Paris, how are they, like, there's this global culture of street dance, you know, which is a whole nother thing, but we've been mentioning it throughout the conversation, and I'm wondering, how is Paris shaping and redefining this dance culture in your experience? If you all could speak to that.
Between both generations, I mean, old and new generation, you mean?
Yeah, like the new generation, what's happening with the new generation of dancers in Paris today, and yeah, how is maybe street dance being transformed here in Paris?
It's complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated. Yeah.
There is some good and some bad, and you know, you can
you're right.
you can balance it. It's just going in and out. You know, it's hard to talk about it because of course dance still need to exist and to get some improvement. But sometimes the feeling I get is that you know, when I go to battle and I watch it, because we're not just generation of battle, because there was no battle back in the days. So I like to see them dance. I like to see some part of their own spirit. But at the same time, you know, we don't have this sharing thing.
Yeah.
You know, like we don't talk. And this is what is missing. Because you see, just share now, it's important because we remember things, and you also remind us what we hear, what we do this dance, and also it's like paraphrasing things that we thought we have in mind. It's just a reminders, different reminders in a different way, different direction about the political part, which is like, you know, I'm black, so I don't have to question that, but the way that she said in a different way, the way that she experienced things the same way as me, we never talk about it. So the fact to exchange sometimes is missing in the new generation. We actually don't have serious link between old generation and new generation, because we have the generation of the club, and there is some generation of the media, internet, and I have to say, now back in the days you couldn't be a dancer by dancing. Now you can learn how to dance a style just for watching video and repeating things, and being a dancer and being a waacking, for me, it's two different things. It's about like know what's going on in the community, you know the political part without thinking about it, without like being involved, but without naming it. And what I see people going in the battle, do their 45-second performance that they've been training in the studio, and then after, you know, I remember battle where people, and after the battles, just stand by the entrance for hours. It's like, what are we doing here? We just here for hours. We just have this time where we're really sharing. We talk. When we experience our dance, when we talk about who we are, who the other one are, and what we have to share together. And this is definitely missing.
Yeah.
And sometimes also, you know, we talking about the dance system, which is something important. Like you said, we don't build ourselves on our own. And sometimes it's not about to get recognition. It's just to say that don't forget where you came from, who gave you that. It could be a small thing, but at the end, it's really big. And new generation don't think about it that much. Some of them. You know, it's important to name people you come from, people who being on your way, you know. Sometimes this is the hardest part, and
I wish, and sometimes it happened, that new generation experience what we experience when they travel. I always say to new generation, travel, go in another country, because you will meet someone, you cannot talk, but you can dance with this person, and you will have a special feeling, a special experience, and you will learn about yourself. You will probably have some emotion that you can explain, but later you will understand that exchange, this experience more clearly, and you could put name on it. You could, educate yourself.
If I may complete, we can take a very amazing example of walking the social dance, clubbing, how we live that, and the COVID. I discovered some dancers, maybe some are here today, I don't know, but who I didn't know. I organized a jam as soon as little rehearsal, as soon as the lockdown was finished, because I was used to do that for years and years, to keep the social link without any goal, like a battle or a show, just grabbing people. And some people told me, yes, I started last year, and I was just like, but it was the lockdown. How did you do?
Yeah.
But internet, like you have classes on, no, how did you do? Like walking for real, like touching Sonia, Soulshine in the club. I was just connecting, and I couldn't say I felt that it was good or not good. I just say, okay, it's different, but what is the evolution, and what are we losing? And indeed, I had sometimes some people telling, oh, but the old generation, we don't see you, you are not visible. Okay, we are around 40 years old. Do we all want to be like on TikTok? No, I tried 1 week, I just closed it. On Instagram, and doing like reels and production, and we have other skills. We have a lot of historical elements from France and from abroad also. And just to finish analogies, go back to what we said about OGs in the USA. They didn't came and say, hey, I'm an OG, I'm going to teach you waacking. No, some people came to find them, to flight, like what Sonia did. I'm just shocked when some people in France don't know, for example, Sandrine Sainte-Croix. She did something historical.
Yeah.
She was the first wacker winning hip hop international battle, which is Juste Debout with Mitch, and Mitch didn't stop supporting waacking, voguing, like Eric, like some people
dancers,
in hip hop who are like allies for waacking history. And some people just don't know her. Why? Because she's not producing, performing, battling. We are not battling for a long time. So some are teaching, some are stopping because it's hard, because sometimes we don't have students enough or what. But so we are dying, or what? What is the question? What is the link finally between these two generations?
I have an image that came in my head. It's an image of your mom. Your mom gave you food. She was breastfeeding for some of them, and you have this. Remember, you don't know how she did it as a baby, but you just know she's your mom. This is a little too hard as an example, but the thing is that you never forget that your mom is your mom. You never forget your family is your family. In the dance, I think it worked the same way. You might have some brothers that you hate, but they're still gonna stay your brother. You know, it's still part of your family. Even you don't have the same way to behave, but it's still your family. And I think that this is what we see with the new generation, because they get to meet people through events, but they never go and talk to them. You know, I like to speak with people. I like to just enjoy their dance and just have a word. Hey, and that's enough, because you know, the way you look at the person will make you just see a part of a soul. And if you get the chance to just exchange it, have this, hey, this little move, like, oh, and you will remember that forever. And you know, like I have this example, you know, my family, they're not there. My brother used to be a dancer.
used to dance a long time ago. But you know, sometimes I've been giving the key of one dancer of my house when I was on tour, and I said to my brother, "Can you pick him up?" And it was like, "Okay, what is his name?" "Okay, his name is that." I gave the last, and it was like, "Do you have a family name?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "No, you're gonna give a key of your house to someone you don't know his name. I know he's a student of that was which way, Shannon which way student. I know he's a student of Shannon which way. My brother sold Shannon which way in my house." So it's like, yeah, but I need the family name. Just which age? I don't know. It's just a house dancer, and I trust him because I've been dancing with him at Sapphire all night. It's like he didn't understand. He couldn't understand why I trust that person, why this person is part of my family, why sometimes my husband don't understand why I cry when dancer died. And it's like, explain it. So I have to explain him which relation we have. You know, we lost a lot of people. He don't understand this link, this family thing that we have between us. You know, Ricky Soul is here. We know for, I don't know.
Time.
And we have those experiences that make us family somehow. You know, we have people who be exchanging, we be dancing together, and it makes us family. Just by the dance, just the fact to, sometimes we don't even know their real name or just their name. We just know how the person dance, and we know it's part of us. And this is something that sometimes I think is missing in between generation.
And don't you think it's because it's something trendy or just a way to show off today for the dancers?
Because you know,
because we are on a feminism way actually, like a heels class, something like maybe it's why
they learn to dance.
Yeah,
but you see let's say the spirit which we call political part, they don't learn it. You know, when you back in the days when we come in a room, you have to say hello to everyone in the room.
Yeah, you're
and
right.
now people come in the battle, they don't even give you a look.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow. And as soon as they know that you're a dancer, then they give you attention. And it's not supposed to be that way. You're part of a culture. You need to, you know, sometimes when I look at young people, it's like, hey, you know, because I just saw a clip of video and like, oh, you know, I know. And people are like, oh, that's weird. And then when they get to know who you are, then eventually they will talk to you and it's like, oh, that's nice, she smiled at me. But you should be happier in the start because just this exchange make you being something. Being at the dance event, it's being something. It's not a performance, it's not a show. It's just a time we share together to empower something we kind of fight for and we want to show the world.
So Habibitch, because you are part of the new generation or the younger generation.
In between.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from your perspective.
I mean, I used to be from the young generation, so from the new generation of waacking. So I've done my fair share of mistakes. As in thinking that I was legit, for instance, after like 3 years of taking classes to give myself classes. They were not like waacking classes properly, they were more initiation.
It has to be.
But like, I don't know how to say initiation.
Initiation. Yeah.
So initiation classes. Because it was because I was feminist and queer and blah blah blah, and I wanted to create a space because it wasn't a club. Because as much as I'm a story head, I'm a club head as well. Many times. But I wanted to create a space that was not safe because there's no such thing as a safe space, but like a safer space for queer people to experience a dance class without mirrors, without a skinny, crazy teacher, without the peer pressure, because that was really hard for me in hip-hop dance school. Actually, there was so many things were hard, but peer pressure was really hard. Body norms were really hard because I'm not a skinny bitch, and that's hard being a dancer, like a professional dancer, without being skinny. That's a lot of identities. But when I started dancing, it was really hard. So I just wanted to create a space that was for weirdos and outcasts, because I was one of them. But then I was read for filth because I was giving classes. There were no waacking classes once again, but I was read for filth by the community because they were like, but you're not legit, who the fuck are you? You won like 2 battles, blah 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 blah. Which now I understand. I understand it. Like I said, I've done my fair share of mistakes. Maybe I shouldn't have done it, or I should have done it differently. But also the dance scene in Paris, it's not just like butterflies and glitter. It's super hard. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of people that are not benevolent, that are not nice to each other, and that don't try to understand your perspective, where you come from, or what you're trying to do. They just want to criticize what you're doing, and they don't try to understand. So I feel like you can make mistakes, yeah, but there's a lot of ego in the middle of all of this. And social media are great, because my first answer when you were like, what about the new generation? My first answer in my head was like, well, the new generation has the internet. And I didn't grow up with the internet. Like, I remember myself trying to Google how to do a dip because I was trying to Vogue. I was trying to Vogue, it was really bad. How to do a dip, and I was trying to do it on my bed, and it was like such a mess. I was trying to do the 8 figure, and there was one video where you could learn how to do the 8 figure, and I see myself, and I was just like doing nogging, basically. It was really bad, but you know, we all come from somewhere. And Bruno knows where I come from. And yeah, I guess it's just a lot of learning, but social media has created this like evil monster where everybody thinks they can be like a super fucking star without doing anything, or they just think that we are at the space that we are at right now just because. We've been working so much, like for years or even like decades, for these 3 people that I've all taken classes from, actually, to get to a certain level, to get to a certain comfort, to get to a certain knowledge as well. It comes from work, like it's passion, dedication, maybe a little bit of talent, and I'm not even sure, but just a lot of work and discipline. And I feel like the social media generation, I'm not a boomer, but you know, is just feeling like they can be famous or they can be successful just because they can post things all the time and they can learn through social media. And it's one thing, because social media is amazing because it's allowing a lot of people to be more visible, to express themselves about so many things, to create bridges, to communicate, to exchange. But at the same time, it's also, to me, creating monsters. And we were talking about it by preparing this conference, like the impact that it's going to have on the next new generations as far as mental health is concerned. I think it's going to be terrible, and I feel like we're already seeing it. Like, I'm super grateful to my elders, always have been. Like, I'm always like super thankful, just acknowledging that there was people before me, even if maybe I don't like them or they don't like me. That's like it's not the point. What's at stake is not egos. It's just like, who was there before you? Like, again, I'm just gonna finish the circle of being obsessed with history, but being obsessed with history is not just like colonial history, because I try to decolonize everything I touch, but it's just being obsessed with history in general. We all come from somewhere. This is also why I love so much the title of this event, like Ascendances de WAACK, Danscendances de WAACK, or Ascendances de WAACK, but like this neologism is like quite smart, because we all come from somewhere, and like Sonia was saying, and Bruno and Lay, we need to remember that there's like a huge fucking massive tree behind us, and we're just like rooting out of this tree. And maybe this is what's missing on the new generation.
There is something I need to add for us to figure how is the waacking community. There is different generation. I think, I mean, my count, it might be like 4 or 5 generations, and it's already like she's not, because when we say young generation, she's not the youngest generation.
What
She's
do
part
you
of the. No, but we met in the club, right?
That's the
we met in the club.
It's been a good 10 years, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of this, like there is a young generation. We also have to talk about the good part. The young generation, some go to the club, some in my class, and they get to, especially one education where we push the student, the future did, to get in the club and to get this flavor, to understand how it works. And the thing is that when you go to battle, you know, what I'm impressed about is like, I feel old. I see all those dancers like, oh, she came with this. Oh, this is something else. This is another, I mean, direction for waacking. And they've been having all those basic, but that they've been working on somehow is good. But somehow, sometimes I miss the spirit of it. I want to know who you are. I want to see you as a person. When you dance, you know, back in the days, you know, sometimes you used to see a video with just from how the person moved, you couldn't really see because I'm a blind, you know. You could see, oh, that's her. Especially Sonia, she was a big girl. You don't see the face, you just see the shape, but you know it's Sonia. You can identify everyone for who it is. You have a lot, the new generation, who also got that. Some are still learning, but you also need we need to give them time to improve and to understand the culture, but sometimes I got the feeling that they're getting away from it. You know, that this feeling that they come, I put my costume, because I call it costume, and they don't understand why they put this dress with all this flair on the side, but they put it because the other one, and I saw it on the television, and it was cool. And then I do my performance 45. And then normally you have this time where you have the jam where everyone is supposed to exchange it, and everyone is, now sometimes I think that they wait for the moment to show off instead of the moment where you connect. Sometimes it's like, you know, these things when I used to say like, oh, that's my song, and then you just freak out. Your mind is going somewhere else, and you dance, and sometimes you don't remember. I saw Eric is the one doing that. It's like, it's gonna go, and you know you're not gonna go because he's getting into it. He's getting high, and you just let the person dance. And this is a circle who started, and now it's like, let's make a circle so I can show off a little bit. And someone might have a phone and film at that time, might be my friend, and then I can post it after. This is what is missing. This true moment of exchange with other, where you have this little thing, this little smile, like, oh, that was cool. Oh yeah. And this is, I wish.
We never had phones when we were playing.
No,
because
because
first of all, we didn't have phones.
we
We didn't have like smartphones.
and it was someone
real,
filming, and you were calling like,
that's
we have
that's
a
that.
clip of.
Yes.
This exchange needs to be real, and it needs to be not only with your fellows, not only with people around you. You need to experience with different people, because sometimes you don't know what happened.
Because it's also, I just have to say, because y'all are bringing it, but it's making me think of a couple of things. The club, even today, is, or even in the, I want to say the early 2000s, the club was already different. I'm going to say this from a U.S. perspective, because I don't know how it was in France. But, you know, I started going clubbing in like the early 90s. And so the club was not just where all the people went that did dance classes and were dancers. It was the hoes, it was the crackheads. I mean, I'm being really real. In Los Angeles, it was all kinds of people. It was not just one particular community of people. I go into the club, it's all kinds of different people. There's queens there, there's hip hop kids, there's ravers. Like, it's not everyone's just coming with the same intention. And there's something different about the life that you experience in the club, the social life of the club, when it is a diversity like that. And I noticed going to New York in the early, or I want to say not even the early, maybe like the 2010s, all of a sudden the clubs were for street dancers. I came in to a club and everyone was locking. You know, like, I was like, what is going on here? This is like a weird dream, you know, because that's not what happened when I used to go clubbing. When I used to go clubbing, I better get out of the way because some queen's about to kick me with their high heel, you know, because they just want to get on the floor and everyone better move back. Or maybe some b-boy comes out. It was like all different kinds of everything happening. You've got everything happening, you know, and so there, for me, in my perspective, because, and this also has to do with capitalism, club life was regulated, began to be regulated. There was a point in New York where you were not supposed to dance anymore. Like, they began to create lounges, and lounges, which happened in like the 2000s, were places where you sit and you drink and you do not dance, which I was literally like, how is this possible in New York that they are having club culture where you're not allowed to dance? This is very strange, you know, but this kind of also began this transition into a very commercial kind of club culture. All of a sudden, the meatpacking district, where we used to go to the underground parties, and, you know, there was the prostitutes there was like all trans folks, you know, everyone was out in the street. It got cleaned up, and now it's just all girls wearing high heels and little short dresses. Everyone looks exactly the same. And you go to the club to hear Louis Vega or Tony Touch, but it's like everyone's at their tables where they just spent $300 for a table filled with alcohol. And barely anyone's dancing because, you know, there's not a lot of dancers that can come in and pay the price and whatever. You know, it changes. New York club culture really changed a lot. I think it's still changing. The other thing I wanted to say, because everyone's talking about this internet, and I wish we did, in a way, have some younger generation folks to bring in, because I know that we're definitely, you know, bringing a critique, which I think is important, but I'm interested to hear also how young people experience it. The internet also is a very social place too for folks. But one thing I wanted to say about like learning the dip on the bed with the mattress. I mean, you know, you got a mattress, that's nice, you know, a little cushiness instead of the concrete floor. But you know, you can't learn to groove. You don't necessarily learn how to just groove, you know, when you're learning on a video. Because we were all talking at some point in this conversation that these all these dances, no matter what dance style it is, it comes out of Black vernacular dancing, which is Black social dancing, which is grooving and finding your groove together. When we talk about locking, the base of locking is the breakdown. The breakdown was just, you know, breaking it down, just feeling that groove first. But when you go to a how-to video, you learn the form. You learn this is the move. You do this move, but you don't learn that move starts with the groove. You know, it starts with the foundation of just feeling that funk. And you can't feel that funk if you don't have a funky crowd around you to help you learn that. And so at one point when I was doing my research, this very well-known professor, actually a Black dance, asked me, well, you know, but the street dances, they're not really technical, right? Because people can just learn it in like 2 or 3 years and, you know, and then they're all of a sudden like a locker. And I'm like, yeah, so the difference is that we don't count the way capitalism counts, because we don't count from the moment you stepped into a studio and paid for a dance class. Don Campbell didn't start dancing because all of a sudden, you know, he was like, oh, you know, and people were like, oh, he's doing something. No, he started dancing years before when he was maybe young, and maybe there was some funky groove happening in his living room, and he was watching the folks around, or maybe they threw him in front of a party to, you know, it was like, you know, the folks dancing and his parents dancing in a house party. I mean, this is what I heard from a lot of dancers. Oh, I always used to get pushed in front of like all the older folks to dance. That's the moment. These are the moments when we dance. These are the moments when we begin to learn the dance, when we're even in our mother's bellies and maybe she's dancing in the living room, you know, like you're feeling the groove already there, you know what I mean? So it's in street dance, because we often devalue our dances and say, oh, well, they're not technical, because we don't think of technique on the way people count in linear time and years. You know, we think about it socially. We think about it in our family life. We think about it how we grew up, how our families grew up, you know. It's hard to separate it out from the house and the neighborhood, the street, double Dutch. Right? Double Dutch. How important is double Dutch in Black girls' games to hip hop dance, you know? So I just wanted to also say that because
I just wanted to complete, if possible. Yes, about new old generation, you talked about trend, and we can list a lot of things we never had and that wackers have now. Being only wacker dancer, that was impossible for us. You can see a very good house dancer, a very good locker. I was fusioning, so I was involved in a environment that FIFA. And all waacking dancers were versatile dancers, practicing different dances, because they had also no choice. Waacking was like passion, clubbing, sharing. It was not seen as a job, a future job, or an opportunity, or something commercial. Really, we were all like this, and we were not that much like Lil Kiss. We can quote Lil Kiss. Amélie, you quoted her, but it was like more my generation. You said Rose Authentique, New York Almeida, Gemini, Sandrine, I quoted her before. Liliane, yes, so they were only waacking lovers, and you can see not that much, like maybe 10 people. So now the new generation, is it because it became a trend or something very powerful, or I don't know? Or some people manage to become maybe more famous internationally than us. That's also the point. So you can have castings when they are looking for waacking dancers. This is something that didn't exist for us. Like I have been called like to put a little bit show of 3 minutes in a 1 hour big show of waacking just to in case, and I had to create my own organization, mon association in 2010, to promote waacking, just to organize social events like jams, then battles, because it was also good, classes, but I also tried to find sponsors, people to support, and unfortunately it was very hard. It was very hard, and I couldn't stop again and again, and after I had a kid, so my energy is more here, but just to say that the opportunities maybe that exist now, if we had them on all time, maybe we would have to take them. But also the point is, what do we do about the essence, the authenticity of the waacking? How being both, I mean, how being wacker, professional wacker, and keeping the authenticity, because you are a vector of transmission now, if you are a wacker. So this is the point, what we said previously, this is how LGBT OG wackers are now more coming back, I would say, in the history, hopefully. But what is the purpose of new generation when we will become the old generation? That's the question. What will you teach? It was like very fast, this trend of the differences. Yes.
You have this thing, it's like you have, like, as being a French, you know, they always tell you have some rock, but you have some different beauty. And you also have some beauty. Being a dancer is also an engagement. So you have to you can take anything you want, but you also have to give to the new generation. Sometimes that's good. You know, this clubbing thing, sometimes I wish, like she said earlier, like we had this other meeting years ago where people were asking, we don't see you in class. Of course, we give in class when we have time, but we have a life, and we club head, as said. Is that right? No, club head. And the thing is that I wish I could meet the new generation in the club. You know, it's really organized this battle last time, where I was so excited. You know, I like to judge just to see people dance and just to dance with them. I was so excited to dance with, you know, you guys, I know you now because I've been exchanging with you a minute, you know, in the circle, and this is something so strong, and this is missing. I wish you get that, and you will transmit that to the next generation. So you know, when I'm 80 years old, I'm gonna go and, you know, get in a club and just like, oh wow,
Like
just
on the
have this little movement, just enjoy what is the dance, and I wish, this is my best wish. And now it's love event. Of course, the event bring people together, but in the dance, I miss sometime this just party, just, you know, how to smile, just 2-3 move, like you pretend with the most beautiful person in the world, and just leave and get to the next one. It's just that. This is what sometimes I think you miss. It's not about like being through the final or being in the top 16. It's not about that. It's about dance. Make people remember you. You know, I don't like battles, but I go to battles to meet people, to dance with people, because we're not this generation of battles. And what I like is just to have this connection. And this is where you make connection. Being good is not about go through the final, because I'm telling you, a lot of people go to the final, they're not dancing, they're performing. And when you get to meet dancers, you understand what dance is. When you get to meet different people, good or bad, whatever, it always make you better. Experience. That's it.
And so I also wanted to just really uplift what you were talking about, Habibitch, about, you know, trying to start these classes for queer folks. I mean, you know, and even though maybe you weren't, quote unquote, there were some things that people pushed back against you for doing that. But it's like, how are these dances also going to be given to and received by young queer folks, you know, because these dances also are for queer folks. They're queer histories, you know. And so there was a question. I know we're getting towards the end, and we are going to open it up for some questions, but there was a question amongst us to bring in the topic of cultural appropriation. And it is a huge mountainous topic, so I'm not expecting us to just crack it all open and resolve it. But I would like to take a moment for folks to talk about, you know, reflecting just briefly, if possible, or, you know, concisely, on the topic of cultural appropriation in this dance form. Yeah, whatever you feel you'd like to bring into the conversation.
This is for you.
Yeah.
And I think it's for all of us, though.
No, but she have a serious experience. Of
Yeah, and something relevant. Something, you do, both of you, but you too.
But I feel like it's for all,
Yes,
anyone.
Relevant something,
Yeah, but it's the same.
Yes, because I saw them also.
You see,
tribal.
for the video. I think we can.
So maybe we could start with
Yeah, you can.
Tu veux start aussi? Maybe
Well,
because
yes, okay. Yeah, I'm actually writing a book on cultural appropriation in France just because there's no knowledge in France about this subject, just because, to put it simply, it's impossible to talk about race in France, so it's impossible to talk about racism in France, and since cultural appropriation is another form of racism, it's impossible to talk about cultural appropriation. So, this is a conversation that is hard to have in this country and in this scene, specifically because people are like tempted to say that dancing is an exchange. It's just like art is an exchange. It belongs to everybody. Culture belongs to everybody. Well, I have one simple answer. It's no. Culture is not an exchange. There is no such thing as cultural exchange. There will be cultural exchange made possible when domination is demolished. When there is still systemic domination, systemic structural oppression, cultural exchange is not possible just because it's not horizontal. There's always a dominant group that is taking from a dominant group, minorized or marginalized group. So as long as this still exists and by this I mean racism, classism, sexism, patriarchy, homophobia, etc., etc., etc. So it's a long way to go. As long as these systemical oppressions exist, there will be no such thing as cultural exchange, as a neutral cultural exchange. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It can't be neutral. There's always a domination. So that's for starters, but it's a very complicated question. And dancing in the dance scene is super hard to fight because it's even, people say even more that it's just an exchange, but to me it's cultural appropriation is even more violent in the dancing because dancing is basically bodies moving and bodies are political. So when you take from a body, it's even more political than when you take from anything else. And like you were saying, and it really struck me when you said that, like black and brown bodies are, the legacy of black and brown bodies in this world, in this Western world, come from being sold and being taken, being raped, being under so many types of violences. So taking again from these bodies, taking again from these moving bodies that are literally trying to resist oppression through movement, through creation, through art, because that's the definition of resilience. It's taking a violence that you've experienced and making it something beautiful. That's resilience, because resilience is not a fucking Instagram hashtag. It's an actual psychological thing. When you take from these bodies that again are trying to fight oppression, are trying to fight violence, it's again so violent, it's so brutal. And cultural appropriation to me is like at the core of how we can fight systemic racism and how we can fight systems of oppression in general and inequality, because in the end what we want is equality, right? Like that's what we want. And we've seen that it's taking different shapes and different paths, different journeys, but we want equality, or as I like to call it, horizontalité. L'horizontalité. Désolé, on essaie de sortir le bled, mais le bled se rentre toujours un peu. So horizontality is the main goal, right? And if there is no horizontalité in the domination system, then there is no horizontalité possible in the cultures, if that makes sense. That was it's a big sum up. My book is coming soon.
Do you have a title?
Yeah, I mean, it's Decolonize the Dance. Yeah, it's the name of a thing that I've been doing for a couple of years. Just a little thing.
Yeah.
That's a book.
Yeah, it's a conference and it's a movie as well.
Okay.
And Bruno, because you had mentioned this topic a couple of times and it comes up in your classes with your students, would you like to speak?
Yeah, because many students come to me and ask me if I'm white and not gay, can I dance waacking or voguing, something like that. Many people ask me this question because they feel about this topic of appropriation group. Yeah, they feel about that, so they often ask me about this question. How can they can dance free and they can be legit?
What do you answer then?
Good question.
I want to know.
No, yeah, good question. I think you can, if you want to express yourself and just dance, it's okay. But if you want to go to say and go deeper and say I'm waacking dancer or voguing dancer, you have to check the background and the socio-political considerations. That's my answer.
Yes, there is the fact if I can complete your really good summed up very shortly. That's amazing, I cannot do that. I'm very sensitive to the cultural appropriation because I have been victim in different ways. First, my tribe, because there is a book like that written in my Moroccan tribe, written in 1905 during colonization, to prove a lot of things that are wrong, and this is the only book I have about history about my own tribe. and it is cultural appropriation for military and political colonial purpose. So there are a lot of ways of making cultural appropriation. Then we can include waacking in all underground dances like hip hop, like voguing, in white forms. The most recent example I can quote is ATS, American Tribal Style, style of dance created by hippies in San Francisco. So they were closer than us yeah, to know what is waacking or what. But just to make it short, it was created in the 60s, 70s by white American people, maybe trying to connect history that they don't have to lots of indigenous, we don't say in French indigène, but in English we say indigenous, so original people of Indian culture, North African culture and Middle East culture, mixing everything, buying very old jewelry to our ancestors that we cannot keep because our grandmothers had to sell them to have money, and making shows. So what is the purpose? They made a lot of money. Like the superstars, they built, you know, the USA, everything is about cash. They can transform everything like my ancestors and yours traditions into money, like earning 10,000 euros, dollars a weekend just to perform.
And looking bad doing it. That's also important.
Also, why?
They look terrible and
yes.
cringy.
Because they based everything on the archives of this moment before the 60s that were colonial, what people call vintage. So as we just started to educate them, they are the new arts that are also victims of that, like hip hop, like waacking. So I can see some girls of this style trying to wack after taking one class online, or I don't know, they think, oh, it's cool, okay? And also about Afro dance, like twerk, etc. There is a show. I'm going to send you the video. Maybe you will enjoy. I will enjoy it. A little group in La Bretagne created a fusion called Ladies Gang Style. And they are all white indeed, so taking from the culture and trying to twerk and mixing that with belly dance.
Oh my God.
And first I was just like, okay, I'm not going to send to my people to tell them, hey, look, because there are only like 10 people practicing that, but now it grew. Like they are making a festival, and in the festival they are inviting only white people.
Twerk and belly dance at the same time?
Yeah.
It's a huge winner.
And they created a style, because the fact is that those people, yes, maybe they are going to put copyright like the ATS. So people put copyrights, and they build certifications, level 1, level 2, level 2, and you have to travel to San Francisco with the OGs. So you see the system. So why am I linking that? We are going to make a restaurant to tell you my nightmare. So first, I didn't want to talk about that because I know those people for 12 years. I just said once, oh, what are you wearing? They said, hey, you don't understand, it's coming from the USA. I was just like, it looks Indian and from my country. So those people think they are here because they have the money and they know how to talk and to make business. So why I am linking that to cultural appropriation, because waacking, it's warning, it's becoming a trend. So we have to be careful. First, we said that first the original LGBT community has been hidden. So are we doing by ourselves cultural appropriation? That's a big question too. And after, here you can see that we are all like African, racisé, I would say in French. So what is about people like that I'm talking about, who are taking waacking and making certifications and making people paying. The fact about cultural appropriation is who is retributed in that, when do you give back to the community? So maybe if they want to organize that, maybe they have to give the money to an LGBT organization, I don't know, but something that is linked to the original roots of this style. But that's a big topic, and we'll have the book soon. Maybe.
When it's just had something. It's the what scares me in the new generation, that they miss all that. You know, the book we have, and we will read it. And the thing is, it will miss. You know, be part of the community. Make yourself identify to other, and preserve this knowledge and all those move, all what is in it. Not only the move, but the knowledge itself, with all the aspects that it includes, and that is really important. It cannot happen if you don't get to meet others, and not because what I see is that now you have your crew and you stay with those people, and it's like you fighting against each other because the battle is in the middle. And even if you fight in a battle, whatever, you still part of it, and you still building. You're part of something that needs to be improved. And if you don't do that work, it's not gonna happen.
So, and I would actually like to also provide an answer, because I also get this a lot. What I think is really interesting is the language of the question, which I often hear myself, which is, as a white person, can I do waacking punking or whatever it is? And my response would be, are you ready to give up your whiteness? And that might seem, well, what does that mean? I can't fully say what that means, but my understanding is actually, why would you want to claim an identity that is forged from taking and stealing and profiting, right? And what would it mean to actually dismantle that identity? That's a more complex question than I could ever be egotistical enough to say I could answer. But I feel like it starts with saying, let me give this up. Let me give up this whole system of needing to own culture, needing to own, because, you know, enslaved people, it wasn't just their bodies, it was their culture that was taken too. You know, actually, we had to create, you know, and then those creations were taken and profited off of. So that's the long history. So we've had quite an amazing panel here.
I'm just going to clap because it was
just sharing so openly and so generously with each other. I know that we are a little bit past time, but if it's okay with you to just stay a little bit longer, if there are questions from the audience.
Yeah, sure.
I have to go.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Is there like a personal question before?
Are there questions? Would you mind if there's a question directed towards you?
Maybe.
Are there any questions for Habibitch before she?
A question in general. Let's start with the general.
Are there questions in general
General
that
question.
folks have?
You don't have
Wow.
We answered everything.
Everything.
Wow.
Non, mais perhaps you have questions. Ouais. Nous aussi, il faut qu'on processe là. No, but if you have questions, you know, as a dancer or not dancer, just simple questions sometimes. You know, it's just between us. And the video.
Yeah. Lisa.
Yeah, I dance with Bruno and lots of videos and waacking the whole shebang. But yeah, I'm kind of curious about what you were saying about like clubs and how they sort of changed, or battles have changed, and the younger generation is maybe performing and you would prefer to be like exchanging. So how do you feel? Do you feel like really alienated and weird if you go to a club or in a battle and it's like that?
Oh, there is two different feelings. When you go in the club now, it's like, oh, I'm getting old. Because back in the days, you know, we didn't have Uber, we didn't have anything. So you go to the club, you arrive, because we had this free for girls before 12.
Yes.
Midnight, before midnight. So we used to go to the club, and we used to wait for the first train at 5:30 in the morning. So that was a time we really shared. We spent together this time. Of course, we were dancing, but also we were just sitting, you know, when you're tired of dancing and mimicking everyone. So this is the time we're learning. We've been practicing, changing shirts to train and practice any kind of stuff that you can learn from anyone.
Yeah.
You know, I have, what I have in mind, I have Zoé. Zoé is one of the dancers, you know. We used to go like a ball in Paris, and this is actually where I met the first voguer, one that who explained you what was voguing. This is the time you talk. This is the time you do everything at the same time, and this is the time where you really get to know someone. And this is the important time also you dance till you can't not. So we've been dancing for hours. You arrive, 4 o'clock, you start to get tired, so you start to sit a little bit, and then the song, you know, that song, your song, so you stand up again and you go again. And sometimes you sit back after 10 minutes, but sometimes you get the energy because the DJ is really
push hard, yeah.
and your body is not answering. And you're like, if I stop now, I will sit and I will sleep. So you keep dancing, and sometimes your body drives you till 7 o'clock in the morning, and you're the one cleaning the room. So sometimes it's just about like, go over yourself, go over the limit. Really, yeah, go over your limit. Yeah.
Go further, yeah.
You tell something very interesting about discovering somebody for the first time or a dancer through this connection which is in the club. As now, when you go to the club with dancers, it's like you already know everybody through the social media for some, and you can evaluate if it's a known dancer, famous dancer, not famous. The level, like, oh, I loved your last video. As before, we were creating connections, and after talking about this, oh, you remember when we, with Yoshie, and she was telling that before. Yoshie is very famous Japanese dancer, versatile, and she said, oh, and I danced with her, and I said, hey, I was here. I was in this night in the club, and I remember exactly, but we have no videos.
Yeah.
So it is creating something very natural and not a video that maybe the dancers made twice, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times before pushing it, posting it. It's very the moment. And you are true, now we are losing that a lot. Sometimes I'm going to the club and I see some dancers that I said, hey, je t'ai déjà vu, toi. Ah oui, sur Internet. But it's not for real. Yes. That's weird for us.
Yeah, it's this thing that, you know, you lose yourself. You in a certain trance. You know, I'm not into, you know, drugs and stuff like that because I don't like to lose myself. I like to have control. But when you dance, this is the only time I allow myself to lose control. You know, I have a situation where you've been dancing like, yeah, you went on the road, I went on the road. With your skirt, with my skirt. and I was like, this is, you remember the feeling, you remember the sensation, like drugs, but you don't remember what you've been doing. People remember, because they will tell you about yourself. But this is this moment where, I don't know, sometimes it's hard to explain. It's just something you can't, I don't know. It's hard to explain. You need to experience. Sometimes you know, I have this example. I have this girl that I know for 15 years. She's from Brazil. Of course, she was not speaking French or English. So we have to exchange, and then it was waacking. She knew I was doing waacking, so she came in Paris. We've been practicing. The only language was like, okay, and she did it. Then we went to the club. At the end, we cried. She still don't speak English. 2 years ago, I went to Brazil, and we still exchanging. You know, she translates through Google to send me a message. I got a daughter. This is happening in my life. She also into politics for women in Brazil. I know a life, she's my friend, but we don't know how to speak a word. And she's in my heart. Just from club exchange. This is crazy. This is how it is. It's just, I don't know.
Magic.
It's magic, yeah. Make me get it.
I've got a second question actually, sort of based on what you just said, but anyway, like, I think this is really fascinating. It's a brilliant event to hear people talk about street dance and waacking in particular, because like it's just something you go and do, right? You don't really, I don't think about it. I just follow what Bruno shows me and I do it, and he might tell me a bit about the history, but it's something you do, so it's like your language, like you say, that you share with someone. Have any of you guys ever taken part in a panel before where you talked about dance like this, and how do you feel talking about it? Because if your main language is dance, what's it like to actually just talk about it?
It's good. This is what I said. I think it feels good because we leave things. We happy with it. Our body is really feeling good about it, and the fact to talk about it just remind us the good times. You know, like when you went on holiday and you have good time, when you speak about it, it's oh that was so nice. I remember when I did that. It's the same feeling. Plus, I mean, multiply by I don't know. It's good because like I said earlier, I've been talking about it with the young dancers. It's like not old generation, but not young generation either. So we've been talking about that. So the person didn't understand. The person been traveling. She experienced that feeling that you cry for someone giving you everything she had that moment, because you know countries they don't know about waacking, but you know you just came and you give your energy, and the person gives you like 10 times more because it's the first time that they see, they think you're famous or something, and they give you something. That person told me like, yeah, I see what you mean, and you're just excited. You get like, it's like drugs.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
For myself, about panels, I did several ones, but I feel that previously we were obsessed about history.
Yeah.
Because as we said, we still don't have history. That's why I traveled to meet all OGs, because everybody told me a different story about the origins of waacking. Really.
Yeah.
So the previous conferences, even those ones are organized, were really focused about the history, also for the new generation, to tell, hey, do you know this name? And now it's like becoming more political. Like today was very interesting because it was maybe one of the first time talking about ancestors, cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
These are topics that are linked also to the evolution in the USA and Afro-American people, the topics, racism, etc. These are topics we weren't talking about 10 years ago. We were like,
It was taboo.
yes, it was taboo, and we are more focused about joy, about Sonia, about kiffer, sharing, etc. Not talking really about our struggles. And now we are discovering stories that we even didn't know, if even we are friends, that happened years ago. So yes, there is, merci à toi. There is something that is changing, and c'est plus mature, let's say, in the political way. Yes. So yes, it's mature in French.
Any questions?
No, did you want to answer for how it was for you, or is for you, talking on panels, or if you've done that?
Yeah, I'm agree with both of you.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it's a mix. It's a mix of how we felt in the club, and how we live it in by the past in the club. But it's also this panel. It's also a way to express another topics around the waacking process. So it's why we gather together today, and it's why we want to share it with others.
So, thank you all so much for coming. There's a couple of things. I will be giving a talk at the University of Paris on the Rencontre campus on Monday at 3 o'clock. And so if you are interested and possibly, it will be on Zoom too.
Yeah.
But are people from outside the university able to come on the Zoom? Maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, if they send us email, we can add them to the Zoom. Or
Okay,
we
so
can
if you are
send you the Zoom
interested,
link if you
or
want.
just interested in also future events, because I'm sure everyone here also has other things going on, make sure that you put your email on to the sign-in list. Also, we would humbly invite any other donations, just if you enjoyed the panel and would like to donate more, because we do have, we're a little short of funds, but we're going to make it happen so we can compensate everyone for, you know, taking their time, really, and also just being able to share the depth of knowledge that everyone here on this panel has been able to share, and so generously, and really from the love of their hearts. So thank you all for being here again, and thank you, Marco, thank you, Pauline, and thank you, Bruno, for being wonderful.